Welcome to Talks with Teads. I'm Dani Cushion. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Teads here at the beautiful Georgia Aquarium today, and I'm very happy to be joined by Jarreau Brown, who is the brand manager for Sprite at the Coca-Cola Company. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So I'd love to just start with, I'd love to hear your background. I'd love to hear your background as a marketer. Where did you come from, and what is your current role at Sprite and Coca-Cola?
Yeah, so started as, originally from here, so kind of plays a part of me being a Sprite, but began my career at Nike, brand intern there on our athletic training team, and then moved right back out after college and began there as a marketing specialist, working across quite a few different roles, ranging from like social. I ran track in college, so I actually started as a running expert at Nike. And then from there, ran our .com business in addition to leading our bras and tights business from women's training before heading over to P&G for a quick stop before coming here to Sprite. Whereas the brand manager, I kind of lead, I guess, all-encompassing the brand pieces from some of the briefing in for some marquee campaigns, all the way down to the full go-to-market.
Yeah, not some bad brands that you've worked out of the past. Super fun career so far. Mm-hmm. So Sprite has always been really closely tied to culture. How do you think about staying culturally relevant with the folks that you're trying to address as platforms evolve, as behavior evolves?
I think it starts with, of course, the data insights, working really closely with our consumer insights team, as well as our media team. They make sure they give us a pretty in-depth download on what's going on. I think being very specific and a bit of a question master with them as well also helps with that. And I think from there, it kind of goes down to your brand ethos. Remaining authentic and being as close to the consumer and that culture as you can. I think we do a pretty good job of that with staying close with some of our key components that made Sprite what it is, whether it be through music, fashion, and also sports as well, specifically with basketball, and keeping that at the forefront.
Yeah, that's great. It's actually a good segue because it's a really big sports year. It's sort of always a big sports year for Sprite, but there are so many interesting moments that sports brings, like scale, emotion, shared attention. Attention is so fragmented now. Actually having eyes on the same thing is really important. How do you decide when and how you would bring Sprite, have them show up or have Sprite show up in these moments, particularly to feel additive and adding to the experience rather than intrusive?
Yeah. It's interesting. I think, of course, being in the brand manager role, it's more of a trickle-down effect from leadership kind of making some of those decisions. But I think my biggest interpretation of it is having an understanding of the brand specific role as it relates to it. Knowing that, of course, Coke is always going to be at the forefront of these things. Getting an understanding for where do we as, I guess I'll say like the younger sibling, if you will, look to plug into those key moments. So again, knowing that basketball is when we look to over index, I think when we think about FIFA, for example, knowing that that'll be Coke-led, how do we ensure that we have specific brand moments that I'm super excited about that'll come in the summer this year during that time that are going to be very Sprite-specific that allow us to really sing our own song at that time as opposed to trying to kind of blend in a room full of yells, if you will, and not get lost.
I love that so much. The idea of the younger sibling persona that also needs to have their voice be heard. That makes a lot of sense. So storytelling is still a big part of what we all do as marketers, especially as AI-generated content has grown. How do you balance strong storytelling with the need to drive measurable results?
Well, I think measuring any of your results is always something that's going to be super important to leadership because we have to quantify these dollars that are being spent, right? I think what's super interesting as we think about the large focus on AI is the real need for creatives at this point. I think in a world where we found ourselves having to boil the ocean so much as marketers and creatives, AI's kind of allowed us to synthesize it, whereas now, instead of boiling an ocean, we're really kind of fishing from a pond. And I think from there, the importance on really sharp creatives is what's, to me, going to drive a lot of brands being able to cut through in an area that is going to allow for, let's say, within the soda space, many of us are using AI. It'll bleed a lot of sameness with the initial results if you solely rely on AI. So having super strong creatives that not only have a really sharp eye on what it is that we want to look to convey as a brand, but I think more importantly, a true understanding of not only our consumer, but who we are as a brand, and ensuring that that authenticity kind of bleeds through rather than just a kind of generic evergreen one that we know that it's kind of been spit out multiple times.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Today at the conference, we've heard a lot about tying both AI, but with still the human narrative and staying connected to that. So that makes a lot of sense. So as you look ahead, how do you actually think most about what are the most successful brands doing, Sprite included? What are you doing differently? What are you thinking about the journey that you need to be on to build relevance, to keep trust, to continue to grow with your audience?
A few things. I think first is authenticity. I think in a world where so much is moving so quickly, ensuring that as we're moving at the speed of light, we don't lose sight of who we are as a brand. I think the consistency, not only in the messaging that we are communicating, it's going to evolve with our consumers, of course, but I think, is there a through line that ties through maybe the overarching campaign for that year, but in addition to that, at its core, who you are as a brand? Is this Sprite right, even though it's told through the lens of a Gen Z consumer? And I think lastly, as a brand marketer, you're only as good as your product. So I think ensuring that there's a high quality in what it is that you're looking to sell or convey to consumers or businesses is something that's going to be super important as we move forward.
Yeah, great answer. Jarreau, thank you so much for joining us. I love hearing her perspective. Thank you for joining us on Talks with Teads.